Earlier, a lot of companies believed that if I had to make sales, my sales were directly proportional to the number of salespeople I have.
There has to be a balance between how much the company can afford and what kind of future vision that they have with this implementation.
We used to add 16 rupees for outgoing, 8 rupees for incoming. From that time to people consuming GBs of data per day, it has changed.
There's a very popular quote going on in the internet that Chat GPT won't replace people, but people who are not using Chat GPT might get replaced.
The idea of a mid-sized enterprise is a little different compared to how it started. People got themselves divided into 3 different parts. ये तो छोटी कंपनी में काम करता है, ये ठीक है, इनका ठीक ठाक है, ये तो बड़े कंपनी वाले लोग हैं. एंड दैट पर्टिकुलर माइंडसेट प्लेड अ लॉट ऑफ रोल फॉर years together.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today I have with me a very dynamic personality from the world of business, technology, and leadership. He has been a managing partner of Shruth Consultants and a former CEO of Groupals Solutions Private Limited. He has more than 20 years of experience and have worked with giants like IBM, SAP, and Dassault System. He has been also involved in training entrepreneurs through programs like The Great Entrepreneur and has published various articles online where he have shared his insights on how digitization can help small and medium sized businesses. And 2 years ago, he have published his book, Making Working Capital Work for You, and where he have also discussed some frameworks like ASCOR. So I have with me none other than Mr. Charudatta Pande. Hi, sir.
Hello Bilal, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my perspective.
So, sir, before we even begin with the questions, would you like to share a little bit about your journey and your background?
Sure. So Steve Jobs had famously said that you can connect the dots only looking backwards. And this is something that has happened with me as well. I come from a very small place, did my graduation in mechanical engineering under the standard scheme of engineer bano ya doctor bano. So my cousin was a mechanical engineer, so I also decided to become a mechanical engineer. I came down to Pune, looked at the automotive industry for a long period of time, about 8 years. I worked in core automotive industry, looking into automotive test system design, manufacturing for about 3 years time, sound and vibration and some simulation softwares before starting my first company that was also into simulator. 2008 was when I got into the world of corporates. I was fortunate to work with IBM, followed by a stint with Dassault, and the most enlightening one was with SAP. When I got to understand what the enterprise system is all about, how companies choose different systems, why do they choose the systems, how companies can create values for those particular part, and how a business value is delivered to any particular enterprise.
Correct.
That was the amazing experience and a lot of learning for me. And last 9 years on my own has been on a very similar lines of using the particular experience from manufacturing enterprise design systems to help multiple clients see how they are able to use technology to grow their business and improve their profitability.
Right. So you have worked with different sizes of organizations, right? Like you have worked with smaller companies as well as with giants, and technology plays a key role in scaling the businesses and growing these businesses. Do you want to talk about how much is it important to consider technology and not take it for granted, for any businesses of any size?
Sure. So when I started my career in '98, we started in a very conventional way, wherein we were the classical sales guys going company to company, going and selling B2B, or even for that matter, we also used to sell air conditioners. I started my career in air conditioning sales, right? So that was very different compared to the way we are buying the any kind of consumer goods today. That has changed. The second thing that has also changed is the way companies want to deal with different vendors. Lot of earlier transactions were limited to specific geographies. So companies operating within one particular area would go to the OEMs in that particular area and sell only in that part. And that is how it happened for a very long period of time. But that has changed now.
Right.
And the irreversible change that has happened is driven by the pandemic. The pandemic has now created a completely different expectation for all the OEMs, all the large enterprises, and the same culture is being driven strategically across the mid-sized companies as well.
Right.
Let me give you some examples. Earlier, a lot of companies believed that if I had to make sales, my sales were directly proportional to the number of salespeople I have.
Mm.
Because I would have salespeople, they will go to the particular field, they would go to that part, scout it out, look at the right set of customers, go and make those pitch, and then get me a sale.
Right.
Now with technology, by being operating from Mumbai or Pune or anywhere in India or anywhere in the world, you can reach out to all the potential customers across the globe just by sending them an email. Now you have a platform like LinkedIn, which will enable you to find similar people with similar profile at any location across the world,
Right.
which was something that did not happen. So if you look at the business today, the technology is by default the enabler.
Mm.
That's on one side when we talk about the revenue. Now look at what's happening on your sourcing side. Sourcing earlier was also limited to the your local supplier base or the people whom you knew. Now you can go to the net and identify any number of suppliers who are available anywhere. You can compare the rates, gets what is the best deal for you, and that changes your procurement dynamics completely.
Right.
The third factor, which is equally critical today, is also about getting the right talent.
Right.
Now the generation which is coming into the workforce today was compelled, to be honest, to use technology even in during their education. Now when these people are coming out and they are getting into industry, they would definitely like to see that the similar set of technology is being used in their company. They are very much used to tools like Instagram or Snapchat. Nobody taught them, right? They were something that they learned on their own, and they have immediate response coming in.
Right.
Now, for them, if you go and tell them that I need to write something, it would go to for an approval to the manager. He will check it on the next day morning, sign it, then you bring it back, and then you basically get the material on the next day. That's not going to work.
Mm.
They need systems which are online, wherein the approvals, data collection, everything happens automatically.
Right.
So, from all these perspectives today, you need technology to enable your business. It's a must now.
It's a must now. I agree to that part, and I think somewhere I have seen that when a journey of a professional begins, right? They are more comfortable adapting to new technologies in the beginning of their career, but as they progress, as they become matured in their careers, there is a resistance which is there. They don't want to learn new things, and they feel somewhere uncomfortable. So, as you train different teams and different entrepreneurs, how do you tackle that particular part? Because tech enablement happens across the organization. It doesn't work just for the junior staff or the upper management. So, how do you tackle that resistance which is there in the senior?
So Newton's laws in action. So we are always, all of us have a resistance to change, right? And that is natural as we grow in hierarchy, as we build our own experiences, and we keep on collecting good or bad information as we progress. We keep on building some kind of opinion about technology.
Right.
And this particular set of opinion that we build, the perception that we create over a period of time, is a challenge when it comes to technology adoption, particularly for seniors. Now, you also need to understand what has happened with them. What has happened with them is that they have experienced a very accelerated change. If you look at the right from the early adoption of, probably we say that Henry Ford's idea of bringing the assembly line
Right.
was the fundamental change, right? So we got in the assembly lines, but beyond assembly lines, lot of those things happen more onto the operational efficiency, simulation, working part, manpower improvement, the safety part, equipment enhancement, in certain cases 3D simulations. All these changes happened over a period of time, and they were very gradual. So when these changes happened, the workforce that was coming in, it was very easy for them to adapt. Now for somebody like me who graduated in 98 and I came to the market, we used to use pager in our first job, right? That was a luxury. Then came the mobile phones. Mobile phones, we used to add 16 rupees for outgoing, 8 rupees for incoming. From that time to people consuming GBs of data per day, it has changed. But the workforce which is coming in today is already consuming that data. But for somebody who has come from those particular ranks, he has seen the things in a different way. The other part of it that happened in a period in between, and particularly in the mid-sized companies, you would observe this phenomena more is wherein these companies failed to implement systems for variety of reasons. They This company started with something called as a EDP.
Okay.
So this EDP was more about maintaining the data in respective silos for those departments, the first stage of computerization. Then over a period of time, they got little bit more into some additional system. Then integrated systems came in. Then the manufacturing integration happened, and then ERP systems like SAP started propagating in a big way, and that change happened. So there was a gradual movement that happened for them. Now, in this case, the mid-sized companies were not in a position to afford the large enterprise systems. So they brought in some localized systems or some small sets. Now these sets of tools always had limitation in terms of the output that they can provide.
Okay.
So a lot of these systems became data collection systems compared to data analysis system. Now these particular part, because they were not getting any kind of output or any specific report to analyze and get any kind of insights,
It kind of look reducting.
absolutely. They kept on believing that this is just a data entry system. So now when you look at this part and you want to say, okay, there is a new system which is going to bring in the data, it's going to give you the report, it's going to take you to the analytics, it can take you to the predictive. ये तो हमने बहुत सुना था, कुछ होता नहीं है. So that is one particular part, the bad experiences is what is preventing a lot of mid-sized companies and also the middle level managers to change. That's one of the major challenge that you would see across. And the other part that they are experiencing is the newer generation kids who are coming in. Some of them who come in with a lot of technology tend to even go out much faster out of the organizations. So they are tech savvy, they come over, they basically adopt, they do a particular level of thing. These people are also happy to do those particular changes, and all of a sudden they leave. And they are stuck with their old manpower, which was not tech savvy. So that creates another issue during the workplace dynamics.
Right.
So that's when they tend to maintain that status quo. मेरा 5 साल 10 साल बचा है, शांति से निकाल देता हूँ, and then let the other guys take over. That kind of tendency peps in.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think at the end of the day, senior management would also resist if they can see the value proposition with them. That's very correctly said. A lot of times, what happens when you implement a new technology in your company, certain time those technologies are not scalable, right? You implement those and then you find out that you have to change those if the number of requirements or increase with the duration of time. What advice would you give to is there any particular template that somebody can follow that, okay, for this particular type of change I need to look at? Because there is a very there has to be a balance between how much the company can afford and what kind of future vision that they have with this implementation.
Okay. I propose a specific set of process. I term that as a digit framework. Okay, this particular framework talks about the first thing that you need to do is you need to define your process. It's very important for you to look at how I operate today. Take a very frank opinion of your own self as to this how I operate. And then you need to also understand what is going to be my process 3 years down the line. If you're standing at 100 crore today and you want to go to 300 crore, few things would change. So you look at what is my current process and what would be my process when I grow to that particular level. Once you define that particular process, then you identify what are the challenges that you are facing. Whether your challenges are on the customer side data, on the operational data, or you are facing the challenges in terms of getting the right manpower or execution or logistics distribution. It could be on any of the side. Identify those particular challenges, then generate ideas on solving those challenges. How you can solve them. You may or may not need a technology for everything. There could be some procedural changes that you can do. Partly could mean that few other things you could outsource to a partner to do that. So generate those ideas, and then based on those particular different ideas, you quantify what is the impact.
Right.
And based on that impact, then you identify and implement that system. So when you are implementing a system, you know why you are implementing a system and what is going to be its business impact on my work. So once you are clear with that, then only you are able to get the transformation. Because for transformation, it needs to be measurable.
Right.
So unless you identify the challenges, quantify them, and keep on tracking that change throughout, the success is a challenge.
Right.
So this is the process I recommend.
And culture plays a big role, right, in adapting any new change in the organization. Do you also do certain processes when you do these transformational activities with the companies? Do you also plan certain cultural activities, some exercises along with teams, so that they are ready to adapt to these new technologies, or they have that right mindset, if I would say?
Okay. I'll give you a little dated example, but you would like this.
Hmm.
This was with one of the largest electrical companies.
Hmm.
They had one of their oldest plant, which was very close to Mathura.
Okay.
Now, this is a typical place which is called the Chauset Coast. The people who stay around Mathura, all the Krishna Bhakts around there,
Hmm.
are very Hindi heartland people,
Okay.
very nice people, but language is a barrier in a lot of places. So they would communicate in English to certain level, but it was usually a Hindi which is very dominant on the shop floor and with the people working.
Understood.
Now they had implemented Oracle, and this company was struggling big time in letting people use technology there. So the reporting was not coming right, and what would happen is that one particular month the plant would show a huge loss, the next month it would show a profit.
Hmm.
So they were not sure what was happening on the plant because the data in the system was not correct.
Okay.
And they had another some statutory reporting issues. So they were wondering that if things don't go right, they may run into some statutory issues going forward as well. So they somehow wanted to see what can happen. And the plant people believed that the system was not even configured as per their requirement. So they had another set of reservations. So then we were drafted in to see how we can make this whole thing happen, and we helped them use the system. So when we went there and we had a good 2 day interaction with all the people, what we realized is that their way of communicating their challenges was different compared to how IT team was perceiving it.
Oh.
So if you go and you perceive somebody only कि इसको तो ये मेरे से बात भी नहीं कर सकता English में, you start developing some kind of a mindset, or maybe you create kind of a perception, right? And that creates a listening barrier, and that's when people are not able to understand. So what we did is that we did a complete a process mapping with them. We brought that entire process mapping, looked at how it was configured in Oracle. We made certain changes over there, and we did a 6 months handholding with them. All that we were required to do was to give them an assurance that when you are going live with the updated system, we are going to be around. So I stayed in the plant for a week, 5 working days I was there. I told them that this is how we are going to do all the transactions. They were able to do that, and now they are using that system beautifully. That particular platform has enabled that team to be in profit consistently for last 6 years now.
Interesting. Absolutely, it's very important to communicate really well the value. So you have worked with entrepreneurs, right? And oftentimes, it's a very interesting topic, and I think a lot of audience that would be seeing this video, they are in that entrepreneurial journey, and they are trying to find a problem to a solution.
Yes.
It's a pattern that we have observed a lot of times, and they are trying to build a technology and then trying to get the solution out there. So what are the type of advices that you give to these young entrepreneurs, or tech people, when they are trying to build a solution first and then trying to find the problem?
Okay. Now the first thing that lot of thing, particularly with the younger generation, what I have seen is they have very good exposure to a lot of things that they hear on net, and they keep on picking up information from various sources.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of these particular challenges that they hear may not be pertinent to a specific geography. Particularly in India, my observation is that unless you work with the entrepreneurs with the specific industry whose problems you want to solve, you would not be able to get an insight over there. I'll give you a very small example of something that I tried doing in Gropals.
Okay.
So we were building up an application for managing the organic farming. And as a part of that particular part, we had tied up with one agency, and we decided to do some field visits with them. So now we went with the field visits, we met all the people, and we were looking at the application, how technology can be used. So the business case was absolutely clear. We knew what we could do, we knew what the technology could contribute, how it can happen, and everything from a tech perspective was absolutely right. Now comes the question of what is the right price point for that particular solution. Now look at the situation. The organic farming happens in typically tier 3 cities or the smaller villages.
Right.
You have a supervisor who is going to operate in this particular area, collecting the data physically compared to the data that we could have collected using a mobile app by this part. Now this particular supervisor who is operating in this area is typically paid between 10 to 12,000 rupees per month.
Okay.
And he is very happy. He is moving around. He is maintaining that one-to-one connect. and plus is also collecting the data. The moment you're talking about an app, that one-to-one connect is gone,
Yeah.
right? This is going to happen. And now you imagine the price point that you need to beat is 12,000 rupees per month for that entire belt, because that's only the cost the company is paying today. So the thing that we need to realize that the problems of tier 2 or tier 3 cities can be solved by a completely different cost structure compared to the dollar based billing, right? Or even a metro cost structure. So you need to be in those particular places for you to operate at that cost structure to solve this problem.
Understood.
That is thing number one. The second thing that you need to look at it is you need to start looking at the business from that business owner's perspective. His challenges and how you are going to address those challenges. Not how the technology or which is this is the latest technology and this technology has the potential to solve this problem is not the right way to start. This is the problem, and for solving this particular problem, this is the technology that can be helpful. If you take this particular route, then that would work better.
Absolutely. I think I was having a conversation with an entrepreneur. He started his enterprise 6 months, and he was very happy, considering that nobody ever approached the problem or the particular segment, right? But sometimes, don't you think it's a red flag that nobody approached the problem in the first place or particular segment? Because already there are so many bigger businesses in those particular segments that they should have identified those problems. So sometimes people, when they are identifying a problem or they are trying to approach a particular segment, they are very happy that nobody has identified this problem and I am the first one to solve it. Don't you think it's a red flag somewhere that they should either they have not done the research thoroughly, or either they are just building the problem, as somebody might say?
Okay. This is a very tricky question. The reason being, you cannot really say it because if you stop that particular thought process, there may not be any innovation. So, some point in time, somebody has to believe that this is something that he is addressing for the first time.
Right.
Then only things would change. What is very important when you get into this particular approach and you feel that this is something that I'm doing for the first time, and that's why it would actually go and work, is to keep your eyes and ears open for feedback. Because sometimes what happens is the owners or the entrepreneur particularly gets so much attached to the idea that he actually ends up forgetting what he started it for. You started it to solve. You started with an idea of solving a particular problem, right? You identified a problem. You started working on that part. You developed something, and you got a feedback that probably this particular thing may not be that big, but this is something which is bigger. So you actually can get up at a much bigger idea by starting at one particular point in time, provided you keep working on this part, you keep understanding it, and you keep yourself open to feedback.
Right. But there should be some sort of some sort of systems where they can give themselves the feedback, or they should keep asking the question that where is the line, that till where they need to innovate and where they need to stop and start pursuing something which is more realistic per se, or pivot their idea. This is a very, because I've seen people spending years and they are trying to get that thing out and still it's not working.
I think the fundamental difference between the current ecosystem that we have and the success of Silicon Valley is that there were some people whom we term as mentors. I think the biggest advantage that Silicon Valley had, that there were a set of mentors, there were a set of individuals who wanted to go beyond their individual success and work with these kind of entrepreneurs and give them honest feedback on what they can do. I think that's a very big difference between the ecosystem that exists in India today and what made Silicon Valley what it is. But I think that system is coming up. We right now have got a lot of, like, say, Atal Mission and all what the newer initiatives. A lot of colleges have got their own incubation centers. A lot of private equity firms also are encouraging, in a way, some smaller setups, incubation centers, wherein there are mentors attached who can work with the entrepreneurs to give them that feedback constructively and help them pivot. So this is where I see that particular thing changing, and I believe that as we move more, probably maybe 3-5 years down the line, we would have a more structured framework available in India, wherein there would be a feedback mechanism. Companies would have certain people to reach out to them and work with them. But it would build up. It's happening, little sluggish, but 3 years down the line, we'd have a pretty good infrastructure on that side.
The mentorship is very important.
Yes.
Right. And how would you approach, for example, there should be proper awareness initiatives, or what kind of strategic people, what they can do right now to help these young startup? Is there anything particular people, for example, like you, is there any particular social media, they should keep it open, or something that they should do to reach to these people?
Okay. Uh, First thing that any particular startup should do today is that they should become part of the startup communities that are around it. So it is very important to keep on working with like-minded people, different companies, different people with different set of ideas. So if you can keep on talking to each other, that peer feedback is far easier to absorb. Even for a mentor, somebody third party looking at your business and offering a certain feedback is still, there can be some reservation. But when it particularly comes to a peer-to-peer feedback, somebody who's just like you working on this particular part, struggling himself, but gives you a piece of advice or just a suggestion based on that part, it's the easiest thing to adopt. So the first thing that they should do, they should become part of the community. Secondly, they can formally get enrolled with different Government of India different schemes, and once you become part of that, you have access to the complete Atal Innovation Framework, wherein you can get mentors assigned to them. Third idea would be that they can also become part of some of the incubation centers, and that would get feedback. The fourth thing that works really well is that if you want to go and pitch it to the investors, a lot of these investors are very shrewd in terms of giving you a very direct feedback. If you're able to absorb that feedback well, that serves as a great way of pivoting your business or correcting whatever things that you're going wrong.
Understood. I think people who are watching this video, they should at least do these things, so that it could be very helpful for them. And so you create content as well, right, online? And how much do you think it's very important to cover your journey through these social media content creation? Any experience you want to share on that part? Because a lot of companies I'm seeing, they are recording their journey from the very, very beginning, and they kind of build an audience around their product, a community around their product, and that community kind of help their product to go out in the market. And is there anything that you would like to share on this part?
Sure. So my content creation journey did not really start in the structured way that you're talking about. Okay. So I'm a very old product. So 98 batch. So for first 20 years of my journey, you would hardly see me except few things on LinkedIn and some personal posts on Facebook. Beyond that, I did nothing. Okay. And some events here and there. That's all that happened. For me, the first thing that happened during the lockdown was when I realized that everybody needed to hear a few things, and it was important for me to share whatever that I have learned and whatever my experiences are. And that is when I started conducting sessions on multiple platforms. So on a platform called msmex.in, I conducted sessions for more than 2,000 companies on helping them go through the fundamentals of finance. Those sessions got recorded, and subsequently we had many more participants on msmex.in. Similarly, I did a lot of sessions with industry associations, and those content also on specific topic. More at that point in time was with the working capital, because that was the theme then that happened. And then came the idea of looking at what would inspire people.
Right.
And it was a Navratri period just that's coming around, and I started recording Navratri series. So this was about interviewing 9 or 10 different women leaders and bringing their journey to this part. That's how I started. A lot of people felt that it was good, because some of them were really not recognized. So then they started getting different journeys, very common people, very simple people, day-to-day people whom we meet, but they have done something different that has made a much larger impact. Right. That happened. It has continued well for last 3 years, and this year is going to be a little bigger on that part. This is one part which is more of sharing some journeys which would help somebody get inspired. And my idea is that at some point in time, we all go through some low points. Let's be honest about it.
Right.
At that point in time, there could be something that you listen to, some particular journey that you go through that inspires you, and you again bounce back. So the idea behind this entire series was to create that. And the other set of content that I created was on the very similar lines of helping the mid-sized businesses see how they can leverage technology for their growth.
Right. Understood. I think it's inspiring that whatever you've been doing so far. Sir, I have this one particular, it's an interesting question. So, sir, what happened? A lot of time I've seen that businesses, they don't take, mentorship, session, the sessions, the type of session that you can have for your own employees. They take it for granted. They don't conduct these regular activities. And how much do you think it's important for these businesses to invite people, industry experts, and motivate their their employees? And I'm talking especially about small and medium-sized businesses, because bigger enterprises are already doing it. They have the right infrastructure inside their organizations, but smaller organizations, or let's say not smaller, medium-sized organizations, they tend to overlook it. How much do you think it's important, and what kind of initiatives they should do for that?
Okay. In today's context, the idea of a mid-sized enterprise is little different compared to how it started. See, if you look at the large in Indian workforce, particularly, to be honest, there were always people got themselves divided into three different part. ये तो छोटी कंपनी में काम करता है, ये ठीक है, इनका ठीक ठाक है, ये तो बड़े कंपनी वाले लोग हैं. And that particular mindset played a lot of role for years together. So people at large were looked at differently. The people operating in this particular space worked in a very different way, and there was not much of a moment that happened. People were very comfortable in getting into a job and retiring there. Now the generation which is in has a lot of aspirations at individual level. So these people, if you want to retain that particular talent and keep them interested in your own business, it is very important for you to offer them something beyond the salary part of it. What I had seen is that many particular part, the needs change, right? This standard Maslow's hierarchy that we talk about, the needs change over a period of time. So the earlier generations were very different. The current set of generation is very different, and the new talent which is coming into the industry is completely different. Now this is where these people are currently struggling. So if you look at the mid-sized company, what happens is the senior management is even 5 years senior or 10 years senior to me, towards retirement, who started in early 90s. Then the mid-level management is people like me who has started in that old school and now are somehow managing because the kids at home are using tech. So we are also into tech. But the younger generation which is coming in has grown up with that tech. So there is a struggle. So the mid-size, it's very important for the mid-size business owner to understand that the dynamics in his workforce is very different compared to what it was earlier. Even if it's a second generation business, the way his father or mother would have run the business is very different compared to how she or he can run the business today. So they need to look at things beyond the conventional approach, and it is best for them to get specific interventions in the organization. It can start with very fundamental thing like looking at motivation levels, identifying who are the next set of leaders in your company, how you're. So motivation, leadership are two fundamental things that they have to do. And if they see a problem, or the trainer who is coming in sees a particular problem, then they can go for further assessments or specific intervention or coaching for those particular part for them to go forward. The other thing that they also need to look at in this bit is to look at teamwork in a different way. The respect levels across these three generations are very different. The seniors have come part wherein the juniors would say, boss, I khade ho jao. Right? The mid level have seen that, but they are now okay. But they will say, हाँ sir, बोलिए ना. He will have that part. The kids don't really mind. So, ठीक है, you are working, I am working. Right? That's how they look at it. So now this is when they say कि ये तो सब इनको कोई respect ही नहीं है, तमीज़ ही नहीं है. The classical Hindi, right? But that's not what they are. They have grown up in a different environment, right? So sensitizing the seniors is also very important. So I have seen certain companies wherein they are putting the mid-sized managers or senior managers through some kind of a change management program, some leadership development programs. So based on what your budget is and where your organization stands, it's important for the mid-sized promoter also to start getting these activities done at the earliest.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. There is this very interesting topic around AI, right, and the implementation of AI in the organizations. So anything you want to share on that? Because a lot of new people, there's a very popular quote going on in the internet that Chat GPT won't replace people, but people who are not using Chat GPT might get replaced. So anything on that front, how you can implement these newer AI technologies in your company, and especially from mid-sized companies' point of view?
For mid-sized companies, AI is going to be a huge game changer if used strategically. So AI has the potential of being one of the most important things that they can do, and AI can also be the biggest distraction because see, technology per se is just a technology, right? It has got nothing. How do you use that particular technology makes all the difference,
Right.
right? So, but if ChatGPT, you can use it for creating your content, writing your assignments. ChatGPT you can also use for finding a lot of critical information, finding out what is the right trend, how it is moving, what I should be doing, how I can position myself. You can get a lot of insights also using that.
Right.
So, how do you use the technology is what is going to determine what the output would be, right? So, I believe that AI is going to be the biggest game changer in the days to come, particularly for the mid-sized companies wherein the talent is anyway a huge challenge, right? Getting the right set of resources is a part, the budget is a constraint. If the promoter is smart enough and he hires the right set of people who can use technology to get a lot of insights from his business by using AI,
Right.
he can get a huge benefit. See, I don't really need a big data scientist or a huge data team to get those insights. I can get a couple of smart guys in part, help them understand my business,
Right.
look at what set of information that I need, and work on using different these kind of tools to get a lot of information, test my model, get the next set of information, and keep on refining my work.
Right.
That is where it can basically kind of can be a huge leverage for them against their competition as well.
Interesting. Yes, of course. So at the very end, I would like you to talk a little bit about your book, and it has a very interesting, how should I say, a framework, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. So I'll give you a specific example before the idea what triggered this particular book. So I was doing restructuring for one particular company, a financial restructuring. At that point in time, we had observed is that to cater a specific opportunity, the promoter had secured some funds from NBFC at 21%. Okay, the entire business was operating at 8% margin.
Right.
Okay. Now a business which was operating at 8% margin and you go and take interest loan at 21%, how do you make profit? Right? You need to work in a way wherein you need to make some profit, right? Otherwise, what happens is that you keep on earning the money and you keep on serving the bank. So are you running the business for yourself or you are running the business to run those NBFCs? And that is when the topic came in that you need to make your working capital work for you and not the other way around. That you are actually working to pay that working capital back to the bank. This is when it started. And when we wanted to bring this part, we looked at how we need to start with the very fundamental of understanding how much working capital do you really need. For that, you need to find out the first phase is how much you are selling, how much you are buying, what is your selling pattern, what is your buying pattern, what is the credit that you offer to your clients, what is the credit that you get from your vendors. If you do a basic mapping, you realize that for this particular level of business, this is the only working capital that I need.
Understood.
But do you really look at that? If you look at the businesses, most of them you would find that they would have leveraged something more. So then there comes the second part, which is what are the sources of working capital? Out of the whole requirement, how much is coming from the bank? A lot of people will say it is not coming from the bank. ये तो मेरा अपना पैसा है, मैंने अपना पैसा लगाया. Now, if you keep the same amount in bank, it will give you 6%. You put that into mutual fund, it will give you about 12% comfortably, right?
Yes.
So then, if you are putting in your money, your own money into your business, is it at least giving you 12%? Okay. So bank will take all the safety, will do all the due diligence, and then offer you working capital at say about 8%, 9%, or say about 10%.
Right.
So when you are putting in your money with your complete risk, why don't you look at that whether it will basically give me 20% return or not?
Right.
नहीं तो उतना पैसा लेके घर पे बैठोगे तो भी मिलेगा ना 10%.
Risk is more, right?
So you then find out if I put this rate of 20% on my own money, then check whether your business is profitable. So this is the third bit, which is the source and the cost. Once you do that, a lot of people then realize that no, this is not going the right way. I am a lot more leveraged compared to what I thought I was. And then comes the optimization part. Now, how do you optimize? You optimize it on both sides. You work with the customers to see how fast they can pay. If not, you can use different tools, like we have the bill discounting. The factoring companies are there today. You can negotiate. You can get it discounted through bank. The client can pay you early. You can get it through private institution. Multiple options exist. So you get the money early, and then you pay it back to your vendors,
Right.
right? And then this particular optimization then takes you to the final bit, which is restructuring your business. And in this restructure, we talk about how close you can go to the back-to-back payment cycle. You get the money from the client, and you pay. If the client is going to pay you in 30 days and you have another 30 days of conversion, you need to go back and talk to your vendors that I'll pay you in 60 days. So that you get the money from here and then you immediately pay them back. You look at how much your working capital, your own conversion cycle is, how fast you can get it from the client, and how your vendor is able to support you through this period. And doing this particular part, the restructuring, is the key for you to bring down your finance cost and also the risk in your own business.
Understood. So interesting. I'll just say thank you so much for sharing everything that you have shared so far. It's a very interesting conversation. Though I was not able to contribute much, your insights were really helpful, and I wanted your experience to uh, go through my podcast to all the viewers that we have. Thank you so much. I'll keep recording more such videos, and will invite more such experienced people in the podcast.